Good morning, everyone online. My name is Sarah Henzi, and I am here today to do a quick teaser about an upcoming event as part of the International Festival of the Blue Metropolis, which will be held in Montreal, April 27th to 30th. The festival is an annual literary gathering, part of the Blue Metropolis Foundation, which is a not-for-profit organization founded in 1997 that brings together people from different cultures to share the pleasure of reading and writing and encourages creativity and intercultural understanding. One of the events during the festival, which is what's bringing us here today, is the festival. The festival gives out different awards, and notably the First Peoples Award. And with us today is Duncan Mercredi, a Cree Métis writer and storyteller, originally from Mississippi, the 2022 Poet Laureate of Winnipeg, and very happy to share that Duncan is this year's award recipient for the First Peoples Prize, handed out by the Blue Metropolis. So Duncan, hi, welcome. It's wonderful to talk to you. It's been a while since we've seen each other in real life.
Yeah, that's true. That's been. I was trying to remember how many years back that was. Like, and I couldn't.
It would be in 2015, I think, when you came to Quebec.
Around that time.
Yeah. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And we're dragging you out to Quebec again this summer. I hope that's okay.
Well, I don't like to travel, but sometimes I have to make exceptions. So, so when Egon told me you have to go, so I guess I have to go. So,
right, yeah, you have to do what Egon says. Do you want to officially tease him and say that it's all his fault?
Well, this is all his fault, and he knows that. So,
okay, good.
I always blame the people that invite me to these things. That's their fault, not mine. So,
okay. Well, I can definitely speak on behalf of a lot of people. We are super excited that you'll be coming. And essentially, we just wanted to do a couple of ideas around your vision of poetry, your vision of writing. I was looking at an interview that was done after the release of Mahikan Ka Onot, the poetry of Duncan Mercredi, edited by Warren Carrew. And I wondered if you could say a little bit more about your weird way of looking at life and land and your stubborn stand on having someone edit what I've written. My words, my mind, my heart. If you want changes, speak to the old ones. They give them to me.
Well, I tell people when I write stuff, it's the words don't come from me; it come from the old people that inhabit my head. So, which is usually the anybody I've come in contact with over the years, and I've learned a lot from other people. Like I said, I tell people I walk two paths in my life. Which is my Indigenous side, my Indigenous Métis side, but then I also walked in the other world, what I call the others. I got that from a movie, by the way, The Others. But I have to say I've learned from both sides, and so when I share those words that I've learned over the years, it's not just me speaking, but it's also voices of the others that I've been in contact with, like my Nuka, my grandmother, and then my mom and dad, of course, and then my other family, my wife and my kids. And so when I put them down on paper, and the ideas that come from listening to them talk, and their thoughts of life and the way things happen to them, I'm not comfortable when an editor comes along and says, maybe it'll sound better this way, or maybe it'll write better this way. But then you lose that voice. You start to lose that voice that gave you those words, because I'm borrowing somebody else's words, and to have somebody else come along and say, well, this is going to sound better this way. No, I don't want it to sound better. I want it to sound the way it was told to me. And so that's a process I go through when I'm doing my writing. But when I also write about my own thoughts, I don't like somebody coming along and say, "Well, that doesn't make sense." Well, it makes sense to me. so so if you want to know how it makes sense to me, then come and ask me. Don't say, "Well, it's going to sound better this way," because that's your words now, not mine. So once an editor comes along and says, "Well, this is the way it's going to sound better," you've taken my voice and inserted your voice into that piece, and that's where I have a problem with doing that. So that's why I said those words. So
Okay. Thinking about this idea of sharing stories that kind of come to you or come through you, I also read about, I think you called it the COVID project or coronavirus project on Facebook.
Yeah.
And just because that's one of the things that I enjoy is reading the little bits that you share. So I was wondering if you could maybe speak a little bit more about using Facebook as an interface. It's different from published poetry, right?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think I enjoy posting my work on Facebook is because that way nobody has a chance to change it.
True.
Somebody comes along and says, "Well, it may have sounded better this way." Okay, well, yeah, you could look at it that way, but I'm sharing it from the way I see it at that moment when I put it down on paper. And I don't like to change. Sometimes I will edit my own work eventually, but at the time, it's how it came through my head. Like I tell people, well, where does it come from? All the voices in my head. It's full up there. So everybody I ever met in my life is still there talking to me. So it's just the idea is that to put it on paper and then watching people's reactions and especially on Facebook, it's immediate as opposed to when you're putting it on paper or trying to get it published. It's immediate right away because people say, "Well, yeah, this is good," and things like that. So I prefer it that way. To me, it's just like storytelling in person. I'm telling people a story at that moment. And when I'm doing storytelling, especially with children, they sit there and they will listen. But if you put it on paper, they won't read it. But so they kind of forget what they've read. But when you tell them stories, they will remind you a couple of years later if you get invited again to that same school or to that same gathering, people will always come up to me and say, "Hey, remember that story? You're going to share it again." And to me, that's what Facebook is. That's why I enjoy putting it down on Facebook. So and then of course, when the pandemic hit, it was perfect because it was perfect time. When you get nominated as a poet laureate in Winnipeg, and it took me a couple of weeks to actually agree to it because I don't like being in public. I don't like going up. I tell people I used to call myself an antisocial person, antisocialist, and then I realized no, it's not. That's not the reason why I'm more of an isolationist as opposed to an antisocial, because I do like people. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy discussing things with people. But once I'm done, I don't want to see them again for a while. so, I'm done with you. Okay, we'll talk some other time. So, if you want to talk to me, call me on the phone or message me or something like that. But don't invite me to go somewhere because I probably will find some feeble excuse not to go. So, but see, so when the pandemic came along, it was a chance for me to respond to all the negativity of having to do things that you were being forced to do because you were thinking of other people as opposed to yourself. And I didn't want to be the person to say, "Well, you got this from me." I don't want to apologize for, "Sorry, you're sick," but I had to go somewhere and meet people that weren't masked or that weren't vaxxed. And so that would be on my fault, not theirs. And so I started writing about that. And but for most cases, I think it was well received. But of course, you always have detractors, you know. So you always have detractors. So
I like the stories about the skating and walking the beasts. Or is there like little snippets of you out at the forks or something like that?
well, to me, skating is a release.
Mhm.
It frees my mind from other thoughts, like when you're sitting in your house at the time, when you go on a rink or on a river trail, skate. You're just there by yourself with your thoughts. It's almost like opening up a little screen in your head. Oh, look at all these people that are coming back to visit me, and and for the little beasts, well, somebody has to walk them. Because my wife can't walk very good right now because of her knee operation, so she can't do it. So I've been tasked to do that, and which is um, quite the experience because you're walking these little dogs, and people seem to love little dogs for some reason, you know. And they always come up to me and then they ask me questions about the dog and, you know, and things like that. So, and usually because the littlest one, the smallest one that we have is very friendly, which is quite, well, to me, it's quite annoying because then you have to stop every time
Opposite, right?
when she sees someone, she has to say hi, right? And so now I'm forced to talk to the person. You know, most of the time I want this one walk right by them. So and so we get little stories like that, and of course the other one. My grandson's dog, the bigger one, is he's an old dog now. I tell people he's an old man just like me. So, you know, gets a little grouchy once in a while. So that's why we don't stop and talk. You know, but he sure loves the mailman or mail person because he has to stop and say hi to the mail person every time we meet up with her. So go figure. Yeah.
What you said about the feeling that you get from skating, it kind of brought me back to this. There's so many interviews online and the connection of with the land that you want to find in that writing. Um, and I know we only have a couple of little minutes left, but did you want to just maybe share a little bit about that?
Well, I guess it comes from living up north in an isolated village when I was a boy, and you spend a lot of time with your family. Your immediate cousins were not just cousins; they were actually brothers and sisters. So you spend a lot of time with them, and then we would, because our playground was a surrounding area, you know, right by the river. There's a forest right behind us, about 100 feet away from us, and so a lot of our time was spent in the woods, you know, just kind of discovering all these little trails that were out there, and you're trying to figure out where these trails lead, and then the idea when you've got tired of meeting or staying playing with the cousins, it was a place for me to go and isolate myself
Mhm.
and to hear the birds, to hear whatever little rustling was underneath in the bush and all that, and your imagination starts to flow because now stories will start to come. As a little boy, your imagination is just all over the place. So you're hearing all these little thoughts or these ideas that all these little animals that you equate as the little people.
Mhm.
You know, there's a little people coming to see what you're doing, and being curious, and that has stayed with me. Those memories have not disappeared, which I'm very happy about that, because my Nukam always said, you know, what you're experiencing here now, you know, is going to be with you forever, the good and the bad. And she always said, and always write both sides. He says, because if you tell the story, just the good side, you're really lying to yourself because you're ignoring what the bad that happened. You know, so people have to know the both sides of that story. And when I have a hesitation to write something, I go back to that time in being up north before Manitoba Hydro got there.
Mhm.
That the idea that I could go into the bush and just try and find out where that story comes from. And and that's why I enjoy that. I enjoy those times because it kind of relates to what's happening now. So there's overreaching, I guess, from when I was a boy to as an old man now,
Mhm.
and yet those stories connect me to my past, to my relatives. So
Well, that's lovely. I have about 50 other questions for you, but I can see that we're almost out of time, but which is good because I can keep these questions for when we meet in person at the end of April. And I really can't wait to welcome you to Montreal. So thank you so much for partaking in this little exercise.
well, yeah. Thanks a lot. Let's make it a little later next time.
I agree.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. See you again.
You too. Take care.